Come on now.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
Man, I want to conversate with Tom.
And now, here he is, Tom Leykis.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tom Leykis Show. With a stupid email that's a lot like other stupid emails I have received recently, I'll just read one sample. They're all pretty much along the same lines. A listener named Glenn Eckert writes, and it says, I used to listen to you. Good, you won't hear what I'm about to say about you, Glenn. I used to listen to you, but now we'll turn you off because of your liberal rantings. This is very entertaining. What liberal rantings? The fact that I'm a supporter of your right to own a gun? The fact that I don't believe in giving money for daycare or giving money to single mothers? These are my liberal rantings. What are the liberal rantings, Glenn? And the fact is, there's no liberal ranting going on here at all. I am not a liberal. I am a fiscal conservative, and I am a social liberal. But all this guy heard, and all the other dozen or so letter writers heard, is that I said I'm voting for Barack Obama. And all of these people now are saying things like, well, I liked your show until I found out you're a liberal. What kind of liberal am I? I'm a multimillionaire. I don't believe in handouts. I don't believe in free daycare for single mothers or any benefits for single mothers. I don't believe in nationalized health care. There's a lot of things that liberals believe in that I don't. But what is interesting about these letters that I've been receiving is that now that other raving liberal, Colin Powell, decided he's going to be supporting Barack Obama. He's going to vote for Obama. And over the weekend, he gave a laundry list of reasons why he will vote for Obama. Among the things he said, he cited the inclusive nature of the Obama campaign. He cited Obama's ability to inspire. Colin Powell said, I think he is a transformational figure. He is a new generation coming onto the world stage, onto the American stage. And he said, for that reason, I'll be voting for Senator Barack Obama. He said this on Meet the Press over the weekend. That raving liberal lunatic Colin Powell, who, of course, is every conservative's wet dream, this guy running for president. Remember he was going to run for president at one point? Says here that Powell said he was concerned about what he characterized as a recent negative turn of Republican candidate Senator John McCain's campaign, such as the campaign attempts to tie Obama to former 1960s radical Bill Ayers. That's what Obama said about that. He said, I think that's inappropriate. I understand what politics is all about. I know how you can go after one another, and that's good. But he said, I think this goes too far, and I think it has made the McCain campaign look a little narrow. It's not what the American people are looking for. Says here that Powell said he has some concerns about the directions of the Republican Party, adding that it has moved more to the right than I would like to see it. In regard to the financial crisis, Powell called that the candidate's final exam. And he said that McCain appeared unsteady in dealing with it while Obama had excelled in handling the situation. He said Obama displayed a steadiness, an intellectual curiosity, a depth of knowledge. He has met the standard of being a successful president, being an exceptional president. And Obama called Colin Powell to thank General Powell for supporting him and said that he will depend upon his advice over the next 4 to 8 years, however long Obama's in office. He's going to depend upon advice and counsel from General Colin Powell. Liberal lunatic. I mean, come on, folks. Do you really think I'm that kind of a liberal? I used to listen to you, but now we'll turn you off because of your liberal rantings. What liberal rantings? Am I really a liberal? Come on!
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. The Tom Leykis Show.
The Tom Leykis Show here at 1-800-5800-TOM. Eric on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Mr. Leykis, how are you? Thank you for taking my call.
Doing great.
I am actually a right-wing conservative who is voting for McCain because this coming election. And I think what's happening is there's a lot of us fellow conservatives who have listened to you rant about Sarah Palin a little bit unfairly, in my opinion. And then the culmination of you endorsing Barack Obama has probably stirred up a little bit of controversy. As far as that goes, I think, honestly, whoever you vote for is not going to change my opinion any way, shape, or form. But I think the culmination of what you've done in regards to actually kind of knock Palin, knock McCain. I know you had an issue with McCain, him trying to get you fired, so we can understand that. But the culmination of all those coming up and then...
Well, I knock Palin simply because she's stupid. It has nothing to do with her politics. Frankly, I think someone lacking intellect like Sarah Palin, I wouldn't depend on her opinion about politics anyway. By the way, there are many conservative, either conservative Republicans or conservative columnists who I admire and respect. I think Peggy Noonan, who was the speechwriter for Ronald Reagan, has shown herself to be very even-handed and eloquent, and I've enjoyed her writings in the Wall Street Journal. Believe me, I respect intellect and smarts, and it doesn't matter what people's politics are. That is why I don't respect Sarah Palin. It has nothing to do with her politics.
And again, I think it's unfair to portray Sarah Palin as actually dumb if she's been the mayor of a state.
Come on, she's been the mayor of a teeny tiny microscopic municipality, and she has also been the governor of the state with the smallest population. And by the way, I've spent time in Alaska. And actually lived there for a couple of months while I was dealing with a frivolous lawsuit. And I will tell you, it's the home of every misfit and lunatic you could possibly imagine. So being the governor of Alaska is not something that necessarily would move the needle for me in terms of what your intellect or your aptitude is.
Understandable, but do we understand that Barack Obama's only been as a freshman senator as well? So as far as some apples to apples,
Barack Obama is brilliant, and regardless of whether you like his politics. And again, I don't agree with a lot of the things Barack Obama stands for. This has nothing to do with it. We have had a moron as president for 8 years.
Agreed.
Okay? now, you got to admit, I mean, let's talk conservatives for a second. Ronald Reagan, articulate, big picture guy.
Bill Clinton, great.
And by the way, much closer to my politics than many conservatives today.
Exactly.
But so it's not that I don't like Republicans or don't like conservatives. It is that the guy we have in there now is a frat house moron who belonged to the movie Old School. This is not a guy who should be the president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I agree with you as far as the past 8 years, and I think what is happening now is a lot of people are relating John McCain and the Conservative Party with that. Unfortunately, they really haven't really seen his track record on how he's kind of been middle of the road.
But the thing is, no matter what he says, when you vote 90% of the time with an unpopular president, it's not unfair to be tagged with that same brush.
No, I agree. But Barack Obama's national health care plan alone is going to stir me not to vote for him. I'm a small business owner, kind of like Joe the plumber, and he brings up a lot of issues that make me scared to actually vote for Barack Obama. Well, he looks like he's in the lead. He looks like he's going to be the next president. But at the same time, I think, going back to my original statement, you going on about that has made a lot of conservatives probably upset. Me personally, I listen to you for entertainment value. I think you have a great show. But
you don't think I'm a liberal, do you?
No, I don't think you're a liberal at all. I think you're more. I think you're more of an independent. I don't think you agree with a lot of the social conservatism, like the hardcore right-wing Christian conservatives with the,
which I would say is probably true for a lot of conservatives in California where I live.
That's true for me, too. I'm single. I'm single. I don't plan on getting married or anything like that. I don't plan on living that whole quote-unquote American dream, you know, of the white picket fence and the 2.3 kids in suburbia. But at the same time, it's you know, from a fiscal conservative standpoint, a small business owner, I have to gear towards more the conservative way, just due to the fact that the whole quote-unquote redistribution of wealth.
Well, this phrase redistribution of wealth is code for communism or socialism. I am also a small business owner. You may not know that. I own a small business, too.
And that is socialism at its finest.
But again, taxation is redistribution of wealth from day one. By the way, that includes sending $700 billion to banks who got us into this mess in the first place. That's redistribution of wealth also. And I don't hear a lot of conservatives yelling and screaming about that.
As far as what?
Should we have given $700 billion to banks and mortgage companies?
Absolutely not. And here's the problem is a lot of the people in politics are going party lines because if you remember when they originally passed the bill, it didn't pass, and then all of a sudden now they're getting phone calls from their people they represent saying, I better do something or I'm not voting for you. And all of a sudden they tucked their tail between their legs, called the lobbyist, said, sorry, I'm not gonna abide by it, and went and passed that bill with flying colors. And now all of a sudden we're going to be, and this is a scary time because now there's $700 billion with the new president coming in, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. And now they're talking about $240 billion to invest into the company, back into the banks. I mean, it's one big mess. Now,
you have high opinions of people like Colin Powell, don't you?
I respect him. I respect him and admire him, yes.
Yeah, well, let's forget about what I think of Sarah Palin. Let's see what Colin Powell had to say about that. It says here in the AP story, Powell expressed disappointment in the negative tone of McCain's campaign, his choice of Alaska Governor Sarah Palin as a running mate, and their decision to focus in the closing weeks of the contest on Obama's ties to William Ayers.
Here's the problem with William Ayers. Here's the problem, the whole thing with William Ayers. No one knows exactly where Barack Obama lies with that gentleman. This is a radical... Barack
Obama was 8 years old when he knew William Ayers. 8.
Blew up the Pentagon.
8 years old. 8 years old. Well, again, this is why you're going to lose, okay?
Yeah.
Because you know as well as I do, this is hyperbole. You know, the bottom line here is there's nobody out there that believes that McCain has the solution to the economy. And they want to hear, that's not the point. They want to hear him talking about the economy, not William Ayers.
And Barack Obama can't speak.
Again, this is not Fox News Channel. It's not hardball. Okay, I'm just having a conversation with you. I'm not trying to win the argument with you. What I'm trying to tell you is that the people want to hear hardcore solutions. They don't want to hear this year because things are so bad. They don't want to hear the old Karl Rove technique of trying to assassinate somebody's character. They want the solutions to their problems. And McCain is not focusing on that. And Palin definitely isn't focusing on that. And that's why they're going to lose.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that on the way the campaign goes as far as McCain-Palin is done. I do agree with you on that.
So, you can keep bringing up William Ayers all you want. It's having no impact on Barack Obama at all. And in fact, I think it's backfiring on the people who keep bringing that name up. McCain suspending his campaign to go do nothing for the bailout problem. Right.
These are all things that aren't helping him.
That's right.
I'm actually kind of studied a little bit, not in depth, but it's studied about Mr. McCain, and I think that he is a fascinating gentleman, and he hasn't even done stuff that the conservatives would necessarily agree with. But I really, truly, in my opinion, feel that he's the right gentleman for the right person. I don't think he's going to win, unfortunately, but we'll see. We'll see on November 4th, shall we?
By the way, here's another quote from Colin Powell, in case you didn't see him on Meet the Press. Colin Powell said, now that we've had a chance to watch her for some 7 weeks, I don't believe she's ready to be president of the United States, which is the job of the vice president. And so that raised some question in my mind as to the judgment that Senator McCain made. That's Colin Powell, not a raving liberal lunatic at all.
No, he was a hardcore conservative, but you see, everyone's typecasting Sarah Palin as a moron because of the Katie Couric interview. Now, that was not a very good interview. I'll admit that.
And the Charlie Gibson interview.
Here's the problem.
And the fact that she's been hiding from the press for the most part.
Does everyone forget Hillary Clinton saying she landed in Afghanistan or wherever she was under cover fire, and then there were pictures of her
as a
doing
matter
that,
of fact, I'm sure they don't, and the result of that is Hillary Clinton is not the nominee and is basically irrelevant at this point. Hillary Clinton's not running for president or vice president, so what Hillary Clinton said is irrelevant. And again, this is that kind of Fox News Channel hardball, Rush Limbaugh style of trying to divert the conversation onto something that's irrelevant. What Hillary Clinton did or said is irrelevant. Democrats said no to her as the candidate. She is not running for president, and what she did is irrelevant.
Well, everything that I think everyone does on each party is relevant. Would you agree on that?
No. I think what's relevant in an election year is what the candidates are doing and saying.
Okay, in an election year, yes. Okay,
and that's where we are. Okay. What Hillary Clinton did is irrelevant. She's one of 100 United States senators.
Well, it's going to be more. There's going to be. It looks like that. But what do you feel about the Democratic Party, if elected? It looks like that Obama's going to be elected, and then they're going to have control of the Senate and the House.
Let me say this, because again, I'm in the top 1/10 of 1% of wage earners in the United States.
But either party, assuming if it were
I paid more in taxes than most of my listeners made in salary last year. So let me tell you what I think about that. If the Republicans who were in office, and I don't disagree with all the Republicans in office. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a liberal. But if they had not abused their opportunity with the bridges to nowhere and the earmarks and the letting the banks run wild, this wouldn't be happening. This is happening as a reaction against the excesses of the last 8 years.
Mr. Leykis.
And by the way, that is the same reason I'm going to add in. That's the same reason why the Democrats lost the House of Representatives in 1994 because of the excesses of Bill and Hillary Clinton. So this is what happens, okay? If the pendulum swings too far one way, the people are going to swing it back.
No, I agree. That's one thing I love about America is there's not one party controlling everything else. But everyone's unfairly chastising the conservative party for this when in actuality, isn't it Barney Frank and isn't it Chris Dodd? Isn't it these guys who are
when the president was a Republican for 6 years with a Republican Senate and a Republican House of Representatives, it didn't matter what Barney Frank said or did. The president had the. By the way, in 6 years between 2001 and 2007. George W. Bush did not veto a single piece of legislation. Not one. And he certainly had the opportunity to do so, but he didn't.
Based on your argument earlier saying that the two candidates, what does it matter what George W. Bush has done? Just like how it doesn't matter.
No. The point I'm making, if you're talking about Republicans, which you just brought up, Republicans as a group, the Republicans were in charge and did nothing. Barney Frank, who's also not running for president, you brought up Barney Frank. Barney Frank, as a member of the minority party, couldn't do anything without the complicit cooperation of the Republicans.
Oh, but he was the one.
Barney Frank's but he's not a dictator. He could easily have been overruled. The Republicans had the numbers to overrule anything he said. They didn't.
He was on the record at MSNBC.com saying that Fannie Mae going forward is going to be a good investment.
It doesn't. And by the way, he deserves all the criticism in the world for that. Okay, but that is not the point. The point is that over all these years, the president had the opportunity to take a stand, and so did the House, and so did the Senate. They had the opportunity to say no to this stuff, and they didn't. And they had the opportunity to say no to the subprime mortgages, and they didn't. And they had the opportunity to say no to the banks running wild, and they didn't. And they had the opportunity to say all kinds of things that they didn't say, and now it's all coming home to roost. Wall Street was allowed to do whatever it wanted. We had Enron during this period of time. We had all kinds of things going on, and everything was running rampant. Now, I understand this whole idea of not wanting government regulation, but you know what? When these guys want government regulation, like when they want to rule on whether I have the right to say booger on the air, they love government regulation. And I'll say something else. On top of all of that, they love to talk about tax and spend liberals. Who has spent more money over the last 8 years than this group? And the 6 of the 8 years, it was Republicans. You know, you want to have a war in Iraq, do what they did during World War I, World War II. You come before the American people and you say, we're going to raise your taxes to pay for this war.
Well, did everyone forget that Bush actually lowered taxes during this time, too?
No, we don't forget. That's why we're broke. That's one of the many reasons why we're broke. Because you can't lower taxes and increase spending at the same time.
Very true, very true.
And by the way, I might say one more thing. That's where my fiscal conservatism comes in. I believe in cutting the expense of government. But I certainly don't believe in cutting taxes unless you're going to pay for them somehow.
Or, and I don't agree with what Bush did with not giving Halliburton that contract and even go out for bid. I mean, there are so many things that are wrong.
Right.
And you mean on both sides, too.
I'm not, believe me, I think they're all a bunch of thieves. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that the American people are going to spank the Republicans the way they spanked the Democrats in '94. That's what's happening.
Oh, yeah. I see that coming, unfortunately. It's not going to stop the cause, though. Appreciate it. Take me out Kobe style.
All right, Eric, here you go.
This is about us. She's so special to me. Yeah, it beats in my heart. Yeah, the air I breathe. She's so special to me.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-866. The Tom Leykis Show.
The Tom Leykis Show at 1-800-5800-TOM. So because I said I'm voting for Barack Obama, I've got all these people calling me a raving liberal. Are you kidding me? Does anybody actually believe that? 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. It's Jay on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Yeah, hey, Tom.
Hey.
Okay. I don't think you're a big-time liberal. I've been listening to you for a long time, in fact, way back when you were on the other station. And I'm trying to rack my memory. Did you introduce Rush Limbaugh to the L.A. audience, or did he introduce you to the L.A. audience?
No. I was here first, and I introduced Rush, and I was on the air with him many, many times.
Okay. So I don't think you're a big-time liberal. But I do, a remark that you made the other day, I think was late in your Friday show, where you said you were arguing with somebody about Sarah Palin, and you were saying how uneducated she was.
Yeah.
Because she didn't graduate, or she didn't go to a big-time university or something. You're saying in order to be smart, you got to graduate from a big-time university?
No, I'm just giving as an example, comparing her to Obama.
Okay.
Anybody whose college career consists of bouncing from one community college to another, I think it's fair to say that tells you something about them.
Well, you realize that, she didn't get anything for free. Her parents couldn't afford to send her, so she went where she could afford. And some of us, that's how we do it. We go where we could afford. We don't have the money.
By the way, I'm not even a college graduate. I was simply comparing her to Barack Obama. And by the way, I've already conceded Barack Obama's smarter than I am, and that's why I'm voting for him.
All right, and then I haven't been happy with George Bush either, but I got to tell you, I think we'd be in much worse shape if we had Al Gore or John Kerry in there for the last 4 or 8 years.
I don't think you can know that, and honestly, I don't think we could be in much worse shape than we are today. This is the worst I've seen it in my lifetime. Now, I know people who are older than I am who've seen it worse. This is the worst I've ever seen it. Probably the worst you've ever seen it.
Oh, it's the worst I've ever seen.
I don't see how much worse it could possibly be with somebody else in there. And by the way, if we had a president who was merely respected by the rest of the world, we'd be ahead of where we are today.
Well,
and we don't.
Well, we don't. You're right. And I don't know if we're going to get that with Obama.
Oh, yes, we are. I was just in France in May and a part of June. And I was talking to people, and I was watching the news, and I was, I think Obama had just been to France, I think he'd just been to France right before I got there. And the guy was a rock star there. You have no idea how highly he's thought of in Europe.
Because he was saying change and hope in France.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the reason is. You know what? It doesn't matter what the reason is. Doesn't matter. What did George Bush say that was so inspiring?
I just think there was more Republicans out there voting for him.
Well,
I don't think he said
fine. But the point is, George Bush made it clear that he didn't care what the rest of the world thought of us. He didn't care.
Well,
And a bunch of morons like you agreed with that. Like, yeah, those French, what do they ever do for us? Yeah, who cares about France? Freedom fries, not French fries. That kind of moronic attitude has in part put us where we are today. Because one of the problems that George Bush has had in trying to fight a war in Iraq or anywhere else is that other countries who don't like him are not cooperating with us.
Well, we'll see what kind of change there's going to be, but
but you didn't. I just said something. Well, I just said something, and you completely ignored it.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, okay.
Is that because you? I will assume then that you agree with what I said.
I do agree with what you said. Yeah, he's not well liked.
He's the guy, he's the guy you voted for twice.
Well, I was hoping for better.
Wait, but the point is, after the first time, you should have known better.
Well, I couldn't vote for Kerry, and I couldn't vote for
because you wanted a blithering idiot that the rest of the world has no respect for. And that's fine. That's your right as an American to vote for somebody like that.
Well, earlier you mentioned that you don't think, Barney Frank wasn't alone. I'm telling you, Barney Frank...
No. I already said Barney Frank deserves criticism. If Barney Frank told the world that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were good investments, then he deserves all the criticism in the world. And if he ever ran for president, I'd be the first to remind him that he said that. Believe me. But he's not running for president.
Well, I mean, that's just a poor way to run your system.
Well, look, when the president is a Republican, when the majority of the House is Republican, which it was for 6 years, when the majority of the Senate is Republican, which it was for 6 of the 8 years that George Bush was president, it doesn't matter what a Democrat says. You have the power to overlook and to ignore anything that a Barney Frank says. And they didn't.
You're right, they didn't. They just figured...
Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
Well, I guess you could blame everybody that's involved.
If Barney Frank... but if Barney Frank is as incompetent as you say he is, and the Republicans assumed he was doing a great job, then it isn't their fault for not seeing how incompetent he was?
Well, look, giving loans...
Yes, that's a yes, that's a yes, that's a yes, that's a yes or a no. Don't you think the Republicans who were in power, who were running everything, don't you think they deserve criticism for that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And really, let's be honest. Who are the ones who've been saying we need less regulation, no regulation, free market society, everything free market, free market, free market. And they love talking about free markets until the world is burning down. And then they say, give us $700 billion. Well, how is that free market? It's socialism of the worst kind. And people like you supported it.
Well, believe me, I'm not for the $700 billion. I think the free market could have taken care of it.
Your president, Mr. Genius, your president said we had to do that. We had to do it. And we had to do it fast, too.
Well, he wasn't alone in that. There was a whole...
It's not the point. Again, this is the guy you voted for. This is the guy you think is competent.
Well, I just can't see Obama with his attitude.
Again, you're ignoring what I'm saying. And that's because I've got you up against the wall.
Well, okay, I'm not a big George Bush fan.
But you voted for him twice.
Because he was better than the other two.
Oh, please.
All right, Tom, I'm out of here.
All right, better than the other two. You can't name one good thing about George Bush. There you go. 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. Dave on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Good to hear from you, Tom.
Did I call you?
Negative. I called you.
Oh, well, you say good to hear from me. It sounds like I made the call.
Fair enough. All right, so here's my biggest problem with Obama and what he will do to our economy is he wants to jack up capital gains tax to as high as 50%.
That's great. Do you know anybody who has any capital gains right now? If you do, please have them call me immediately.
No, there's people like me, and I'm sure there's many, many, many people like me out there.
Stock market's down. Stock market's down, depending on what index you use, anywhere from 35 to 44%. Anybody out there with capital gains, please call in immediately.
People out there have capital gains, Tom, and they've survived on capital gains in the past, and we will in the future.
Well, you have the opportunity right now to sell your stocks and lock in those gains before the taxes go up.
I'm talking about going forward. I'm not talking about what we're dealing with now. We've got to look at the guys that are going to be in the White House going forward. And we've got to have people in there that are going to protect.
Well, first of all, as I have said on this program, no president is a dictator. The president has to have the cooperation of the House and the Senate.
Are you talking about Bush or are you talking about going forward?
Any president has to have the cooperation of the House and the Senate.
Oh, there's no doubt. Absolutely.
So just because Barack Obama says he wants to do something, or just because there are rumors that he wants to do something, doesn't mean he'll be able to do them.
Keep in mind that you've got Nancy Pelosi in there right now. They're already planning on raising taxes.
Well, you know what? Again, your taxes have been raised over the last 8 years in the form of the devaluation of the dollar.
Well,
and that, by the way, what I just said is about as conservative a statement as anybody can make. That I see the devalued dollar as a tax increase.
It is. You're right.
And your taxes have gone up considerably over the last 8 years if you consider a devaluation of the dollar to be a tax increase, right?
Well, if you're talking about the buying value of the dollar.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So your taxes already have been raised, haven't they?
That's across the board to everybody.
And you do understand that once you raise tax, that's true, it is across the board to everybody, which is even worse than what Obama is proposing to do. You also should know from your experience with Bill Clinton, you should know that raising taxes, like it or not, will strengthen the dollar. Strengthening the dollar will lower the taxation of devaluation.
Bill Clinton made the same comments that Obama's making now. To get in the office, he said, I'm going to cut taxes. He gets in there and he didn't cut taxes.
Again, some taxes were cut, others were raised.
Fair enough. But my point is...
But George H.W. Bush did that, too. I mean, lots of people do it.
Except the Bush administration did manage to cut some taxes.
Which, the first George Bush?
The second George Bush.
The second George Bush, yes, and we're broker than ever. And the reason we're broker than ever is because he cut taxes without cutting spending.
Rating is somewhere in the
You
30s.
can't cut taxes without cutting spending. You can't do it.
But you cannot...
You can't do it. You can't do it. Yeah, if you insist on increasing spending, you have to pay for it.
I couldn't hear that. I want to punctuate my point.
If you you're not going to punctuate anything until I finish this sentence, until you hear it all the way through.
Okay.
And that is, you can't raise taxes I can't lower taxes without paying for it with spending cuts. And you see, this is why we're broke. Because Bush cut taxes and increased spending at the same time.
Where is Obama cutting?
Obama's not president yet. Let's talk about what we have and what you have supported for 8 years.
One of the first things I said when I got on your program is I said, looking forward, we've got to look forward.
No, you're looking forward because you don't want to look at the bad record that you have endorsed for 8 years. And McCain would be a continuation of that same program.
I've enjoyed the low taxes for the last 8 years.
Really? So you enjoy the decreased value of the dollar? Do you travel outside the country at all?
It's yes, as a matter of fact.
Really? And did you notice the decreased buying power of a dollar? I did. You know what? I've been to Europe 4 times in the last 3 years. And I was there when a euro cost $1.60. $1.60. I remember when the euro came out, it was 87 American cents. Now it's $1.60.
Yep.
That is a tax.
Yes, it is.
That is a tax. You can say you're not raising taxes all you want, but when you devalue the dollar in order to help American business, you have increased taxes.
Well, then what I say is if you're devaluing the dollar, then you need a lot more of them.
But that's exactly what's happening. When they say they're pumping liquidity in the system, hey, what's that code for? We're printing more money. Yes, that means every dollar is going to be worth less. And that's by the way, that's your group. That's your group that did this. That's your group. Now, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative and a social liberal. And as far as the economy is concerned, I'm a hardcore fiscal conservative. Your guys said one thing and did another. The reason I oppose your guys is not because they're not liberal enough. The reason I oppose your guys is because they promised to cut the size of government, and they expanded it. It mushroomed over the last 8 years. Your guys did that.
Who is it that just voted to spend $7 billion?
We're not talking about what just happened. I'm talking about over 8 years. And by the way, who was the president who said we had to get that passed immediately? What party did he belong to?
Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
1-800-5800-TOM. Leykis. 1-800-5800-866. The Tom Leykis Show.
Hollywood, it's Tom Leykis at 1-800-5800-TOM. Ask the listeners. People are writing and saying, I'm a raving liberal. What? Because I'm voting for Obama? What, are you kidding me? 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. Molly, you're on the Tom Leykis Show. Molly, hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hi, Molly.
I just want to say thank you so much for, saying that it's okay to be intelligent. And I was telling your screener that for a while I thought America was turning into that movie Idiocracy. I don't know if you've seen it. But,
well, it was turning into that country, and here's what happened. Unemployment went over 7%. The stock market started crashing, and all of a sudden people realized, holy cow, we need someone with a brain.
And for people that just hold on to, whatever it is that says, even John McCain and Sarah Palin, they're not, when they get up and speak, I mean, the fact that you think Spain is in South America, that's scary to me. The fact that Sarah Palin didn't own a passport, my son has had a passport since he was 5. And we use it, you know what I mean? And it's not like, I'm in the upper tax bracket, but we work, we understand travel is important. You want to see the world, you want to experience things, and it's scary.
Well, I've been advocating overseas travel for years, and I've done a lot of it, and it really does enrich you, and it really does give you a more interesting way of looking at the world, a more interesting way of looking at ourselves.
Because you realize it's not just us. I mean, there are tons of people out there in other cultures, and it's funny because I have friends that I met in, when I was in Europe a couple of years ago, and we still email each other, and we still, to keep in contact or whatever. But when they would email me things about Barack Obama and how their country is, dealing with this, I mean, certain people or whatever. But I'm thinking, like, for people who are only focused on the fact that they want McCain, and essentially, I guess it boils down to, because it's something familiar. I mean, all these years we've had white men as president, and I get that.
Well, that's like the women. That's like the women who keep dating abusive guys because it's familiar.
Yes, break the cycle. Let's break the cycle.
Come on, at some point, stop letting the guy hit you over the head with a ball-peen hammer. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, George Bush. I just saw the movie W.
Yes.
And it was a comedy. I like George Bush because he makes me laugh, and I've laughed and cried for the last 8 years. I want some seriousness. I want my country to be respected. I hate when I go to other countries and people want to grill me on, about George Bush. And I'm like, I didn't vote for him. I really can't explain him. It's a phenomenon. Unfortunately, Americans are stupid.
Here's the other thing. The big Bush supporters, they're exactly the kind of people who never travel, leaving people like you and me to explain what they do. These are the people with the freedom fries, and these are the people who say, who cares about France? They're just a bunch of frogs anyway, bunch of pussies. Hey. These are the people who never travel to other countries. So you go to other countries, and I go to other countries, and people go, you're American? You tell me why you elect this guy. The people who elected this guy will never be on these trips.
I know you have, it's that one extreme, you have people who elect them, and they might be economically disadvantaged, and maybe that's their issue with traveling. But then you have people who, they work, and I don't understand how you can work, how you can go to college if it's something other than familiar wealth. And it's like, here you are, you don't feel the need to, pick someone who instead of just looks like you, but who thinks like you. The fact that you're a thinker, that you're interested in thoughts and ideas. I don't know. I thank God I went to college. I thank God that, my family, we all went and everybody graduated, and, that we think and we read and we converse and we have dialogues. And I feel sorry for people who all they do is read the newspaper and television, and they're being programmed by that, and that they don't have the ability to think outside the box.
Well, I think a lot more people have the ability to think outside the box than we thought. But this year they were motivated and mobilized to go out and do something about it.
I hope so. I really hope so. I hope everybody gets out, regardless of what their opinion is. I definitely hope everybody votes. So that way you can have an opinion. Because I also hate the people who are so opinionated, yet they don't vote.
I agree. Anyway, I agree with you, Molly. But I thank you for that. I appreciate the call. Eddie on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hello, Eddie.
I just want to say, these people who think that you're a liberal because you don't like McCain are morons who can't understand the concept that just because you're not in one camp doesn't necessarily mean you're in the other.
Well, I use Colin Powell as my example. Is Colin Powell a raving liberal?
Well, no, listen, I deal with this the same because I, like you, am more of an independent and more along the libertarian lines. And there's never been a candidate that accurately represents me, and I'm always voting for the guy who I think bites the least. And, you know, people go, oh, you're a liberal, you're a flaming liberal. And it's like, no, I'm not a flaming conservative. That's all I wanted to say. Can you blow me up?
Yes, Eddie, I can. 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. Let's say hello here to Rich on the Tom Leykis show.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah.
Hey, quick question. What did you think about Ron Paul before he dropped out of the race?
You know, I know that on the Internet there are people recommending that people like you call shows like this and ask this question. So I know where it comes from. If you were a listener to this show rather than somebody who reads other people's blogs, you would know I've already discussed that. And
okay. Yeah, I didn't know because I've only listened to your show for like 2 weeks.
Of course, I know. I can tell. Because I've talked about Ron Paul many times. Anybody who's ever been a capital L libertarian will never be the president of the United States. Save yourself the time.
Yeah. I got a good question for you, Tom. I don't know, are you guys just talking politics, or can I kind of shoot around here?
No, if it's related to the election right now, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Thank you for the call. Liam on the Tom Leykis show. Hello.
Tom, real quick, you know what? I backed that other guy that just talked to you. You know, I'm a Ron Paul man myself, and nobody had me call. I'm an isolationist. I think the Federal Reserve should be abolished along with the IRS. And
this is why libertarians will never be elected, because this is exactly the kind of stuff libertarians say that scares the hell out of people.
Tom, you want the dollar to be strong, right?
Again, it doesn't matter what I want. I'm telling you that when you say things like that, you scare people to death.
Maybe they need to be scared. But
the point is they'll never vote for a candidate that says what you just said.
Okay, then we'll keep getting candidates who are...
Because they're the same people who said, let's close the public libraries, let's close the public schools. Believe me, I know all about libertarianism. And when people say, let's get rid of the post office, people get freaked.
I'm not a libertarian.
But that's what libertarians say.
Okay,
and that's what Ron Paul is a libertarian.
Mentioned 3 issues, Tom, and now I want to ask you, what is Barack Obama's real name? What were his
that's enough. You know, this stuff is so tiresome. Our email address is tom@blowmeuptom.com. tom@blowmeuptom.com.
The Tom Leykis Show.